Hey everyone, Lucas Larson here with Dissected Art, and it is a good time to talk about the needles and pins on the ThreadLock Gilson hook. One of the first questions people have with these is, why aren't they 6 and 8 gauge and instead 7 and 5 gauge? And the reason is that we're not putting in body jewelry, so there's no reason to conform to the specific sizes of the jewelry gauge system. Instead, it's wiser to focus on how the body responds to the thickness of the material. And with this, we have the ability to pierce with a 6 gauge needle for the extra large and large pins, and then an 8 gauge needle for the medium and small. And then we stretch up. This stretches up to a 7 gauge on the small and medium, and on the large and extra large it stretches up to a 5 gauge. And by undersizing the holes for the piercings, it actually provides a little bit of stretch prior to the suspension. As soon as you suspend, you're putting so much weight on the hooks that it immediately begins gaping open a little bit and it bleeds. By pre-stretching the piercings just slightly, it makes it to where it doesn't actually do a lot of that bleeding. Frequently people can suspend for long periods of time with these hooks and never actually clean away any blood. The taper is so closely fit that you can actually turn the hook upside down and shake it and it won't fall off. This is really useful whenever you are getting your needle set and you want to control the angle of the bevel. Before, I would hold my pinky just right on the connection to hold it in place. But this makes it so you don't even have to do that. If you're a bevel up person or a bevel down, you can control that. I'm not going to get into that debate here. But you don't actually have to hold it with your pinky to control it. So it's important to talk about piercing needle compatibility. Now, every 8 gauge piercing needle I've found has fit perfectly on the shoulder of this pin. Here's the extra large hook. Both the extra large and the large use a 5 gauge pin. Nearly every 6 gauge needle on the market fits perfectly on the 5 gauge pins. But due to a difference in the wall thickness used by industrial strength needles, they cannot be used with these. Now, a further explanation of this, these fit pretty much perfectly. A nice smooth fit, and here we have an industrial strength needle and it does not fit on at all. Why, you might ask? Industrial strength uses a wall thickness on their needles that is double that of every other manufacturer of suspension or of piercing needles. Now, the reason that is relevant is that the shoulder of the pin has to fit in the inside. If this is double the wall thickness, then that means the shoulder would have to be machined thinner in order to fit, like it does in here. So, this fits perfectly. These are almost all the needles on the market. So I had to exclude industrial strength. But there's more reasons beyond that. In order to make the pin fit inside the industrial strength needle, it would make the fit on every other manufacturer's needle loose and very difficult to use instead of nice and secure. More than just the fit is, if I make the shoulder thinner, then this taper, in order to be 1/8 of an inch and still fit inside the frame, it would have to be a much steeper taper, which would make for a very uncomfortable experience having the hook thrown, which is how they were before. And this was one of the biggest complaints, was that the taper hurt. It hurt going in. And so by thickening that, I made the pin fit perfectly in 95% of needles that are being used. And then it had a much more gentle taper. The other reason is this shoulder right here is actually the weakest point on the hook. The hooks are extremely strong, but I saw no reason to weaken the hook just to accommodate a single manufacturer of needles. Another problem with industrial strength needles is they only sell to piercing professionals. And most of the people who practice suspension do not work in the piercing industry. So this causes a lot of difficulty getting the equipment. I hope this answers any questions you might have about the Dissected Art ThreadLock Gilson hooks.